Yo, what's up, guys? It's Noah here, breaking down the NBA slate on Draftkings and Yahoo for Friday, March the 6th. We do have a big Friday night slate. We got 10 games to break down. We'll go through this slate position by position, talk about the players that stand out to me the most, giving you guys some of my early thoughts, what I'm seeing on Thursday night when I'm recording this video. We'll talk about DraftKings pricing. We'll hit on players I like for DK. We'll switch over to Yahoo. We'll talk about some players I like specifically for Yahoo's pricing as well. Just before we do get started, guys, as always, would appreciate it if you would drop a like down below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. Click the notification bell so that way you do get notified every time I upload. And if you have not yet, you can check out all the exclusive content I do have to offer over on Patreon. My Patreon is linked down below in the description. I do provide content over there Monday through Friday. I usually give updated core plays every day of the week, even on the weekends. I write an article Monday through Friday. I'll have an article up for this slate. It's usually anywhere from 8 to 10 pages long, going in depth, highlighting all my favorite plays at each position. So you can check out the Patreon, see all that I have to offer over there. Also, if you would like, you can follow me on Twitter, which is linked down below in the description as well, at DFS by Noah. I am pretty active on Twitter, so if you want to give me a follow there, would appreciate it. But yeah, guys, let's go ahead and take a look at point guard for today. We'll start off at the top. We'll hit on our stud options here. Luka Doncic, our most expensive point guard, $11,300. He is our most expensive player overall on the slate, just $100 more than Giannis. So starting off with Luka, I think this is a pretty good spot for him against Memphis. As you can see, he is currently listed as questionable. This is something we're going to have to monitor heading into Friday. I have to assume that Luka plays. He's been questionable for like the past, I don't even know, 2-3 games, and he's played every game. For what it's worth, he did not practice Thursday due to an illness. He's also had a thumb injury as well. That's kind of been bothering him. So maybe there's a chance he sits. If I had to guess, I would say he plays. Assuming he does play, he's probably going to play 35, 36 minutes if this is a close game. It is a really good spot against Memphis. Memphis does play at a very fast pace. They are 7th in pace this season. They've been relatively bad defensively as well. Luka, in limited minutes, only played 28 minutes against the Grizzlies earlier this season. Did have 59 DraftKings points against them. Was just 2 assists shy of a triple double. I really like Luka last slate against the Pelicans. That worked out well. He had a massive triple double, 73 DraftKings points in 41 minutes in that overtime game. I like him again here. I don't think he's my favorite stud on the slate, especially now that his price tag has come up to 11.3. When you look at guys priced elsewhere, like you have Trae Young in a smash spot against the Wizards for 9,900. Even Damian Lillard against the Suns is only 9,700. No DeAndre Ayton for the Suns today. You got Devin Booker down here at 8,400. So there are a lot of other studs to go to. Not to mention you have guys like Giannis, LeBron, Bradley Beal. There's a ton of other studs today. So Luka's not going to be a priority for me, but definitely a guy I would get some exposure to. I think he does have upside here against the Grizzlies. I'd probably rather play him over LeBron. LeBron getting to face the Bucks here. We know the Bucks are a really good defensive team, but they do play at a very fast pace, so that does give a little bit of upside to LeBron. But I don't know if I can pay 10-9 for him when you have Luka for a little bit more in a much better matchup. I think Luka, on a production basis, is going to be more productive of a fantasy player than LeBron is. Whenever both LeBron and AD are healthy, LeBron averages like 1.5 fantasy points per minute. Whereas Luka, even when Porzingis is healthy, Luka still averages like 1.7 fantasy points per minute. So I do give the slight edge to Luka over him. But I think my favorite stud option today is Trae Young. I really like Trae Young in this spot against the Wizards. His price has come down a little bit. He's down to 9,900 on DK. On Yahoo, price came down a little bit as well. He's down to $47. So Trae Young is a guy that I think I've pretty much rostered like three slates in a row. He's been like a core play for me, 3 slates in a row. He did okay against Portland, kind of disappointing against Brooklyn, then was just an absolute disaster against Memphis. Had 23 DraftKings points in one of the, it was supposed to be the best game of the night. That game had such a high total, and it just did not go that way. It was a massive blowout. Young only played 29 minutes. Was very disappointing. This is another great spot for him today. I mean, he's had some really good matchups just as of late, facing Portland, Memphis, Brooklyn. Gets another smash spot today against the Wizards. It's hard for me to overlook Trae Young on this slate with how good this matchup is. The Wizards playing at the fifth fastest pace in the league. The Hawks are playing at the 6th fastest pace. You got 2 incredibly fast-paced teams here, and we see that in the total. Right now, this game has a 245.5 total, which is up there in terms of highest totals we've seen this season. I know the Minnesota New Orleans game the other day had like a 246 total. This one could maybe even rise as the day goes on. It's got a close 3-point spread as well, so Vegas is expecting a close game here. Just such a good spot. This Wizards team is so bad defensively. They're dead last in defensive rating. I think Trae Young has 70, 75 point upside. I know when they played the Wizards, I think it was like a month or two ago, Trae Young did have like 70 fantasy points against them. I'll pull it up on the Yahoo game log. They played January 26th at home, and Trae Young had 71 fantasy points, played 39 minutes, had 45 points, 6 rebounds, and 14 assists. They did play the Wizards earlier this season as well, back on January 10th. Trae Young was much more disappointing that game, just 34 fantasy points in 31 minutes. So he's played the Wizards twice. He's had a massive game against them, and then he's had a really disappointing game. If I had to guess, I lean toward Trae Young putting up a ceiling game. The matchup is just so good. The game's going to be played at such a fast pace, so many points scored, 2 incredibly bad defensive teams. Like, this game just sets up so well for DFS. This is by far going to be one of the more popular games on the slate, and I think for good reason. I know the Memphis-Atlanta game was going to be really popular, and it didn't really turn out that way, or it didn't wind up being like the best game of the night just because of the blowout. I think this is a game we can expect a ton of points scored. We can expect a close game. Maybe the Wizards blow out the Hawks, but I don't even think that's possible. Like, the only way the Wizards are going to blow out the Hawks is if Bradley Beal is making every shot he takes, because there's really nobody on the Wizards besides Beal that's going to do a ton of scoring. We could see Bradley Beal and Trae Young just go at it in this game. So, love Trae Young here. Love the price has come down a little bit. I think that just makes him even more appealing today. Definitely one of my favorite spend-up options on the slate. I think Damian Lillard, though, is pretty appealing as well. He's 9,700, a little bit less than Trae Young. So his first game back from his injury was not limited at all. Played 32 minutes against Washington. Lost some minutes late in that game due to blowout, so he was on pace to play like his normal 34, 35 minutes. Wasn't as productive as you would expect. Only 41 DK points in those 32 minutes. I think that's just kind of like him shaking off the rust. I expect as he gets more games in, more time in, he's going to just be better than that. This is a guy that's going to average probably 1.3, 1.35 fantasy points per minute. I do prefer Trae Young over him a little bit. I think Trae Young just gives you a little bit more upside, but it is a pretty good spot for Lillard as well against a pretty bad Suns team. But like I said, if I'm just playing one lineup today, I definitely would prefer Young over Lillard. I think Lillard is in play, though. Like, he would be in my player pool if I was playing a lot of lineups. But then in this 8K range, there's a lot of intriguing options here. Devin Booker, I like quite a bit at 8,400. DeAndre Ayton expected to be out for the Suns, which does give a slight boost to Devin Booker. He does see a little bit of a usage bump with Ayton off the floor. It's a great spot against Portland. Portland, a terrible defensive team. In terms of defensive rating, they're 27th in defensive rating this season. 2 pretty fast-paced teams as well. Portland playing at the 11th fastest pace. The Suns are 9th in pace. So we should expect a lot of points scored here as well. We don't have a total yet on this game, but if I had to guess, I would say this game's going to probably come in at like 235, 236, maybe even higher. It's going to be another game we want to get some exposure to. With Ayton being out, that definitely gives us some value from the Suns that we will talk about later on in the video. But Devin Booker, I like in that mid-range, 8,400. I do prefer him over guys like D'Angelo Russell, CJ McCollum, Drew Holiday. Like, definitely prefer Booker over those guys. But then you get to someone like Kemba Walker, who I think is very appealing today. So we don't know yet what his minutes are going to be like. In his first game back from injury against Brooklyn, he only played 23 minutes, had 29 Draftkings points. They could limit him again, or they could give him 30, 35 minutes. We don't really know here. This is definitely going to be something we need to keep an eye on. But assuming he can play his full allotment of minutes, I think he's very appealing, given the Celtics are going to be without both Gordon Hayward and Jaylen Brown today. Both those guys have already been ruled out, which does give a nice bump in usage to guys like Jason Tatum and Kemba Walker. You look at their numbers this season with both those guys off the floor, both Hayward and Brown off. Kemba's averaging 1.29 fantasy points per minute, has a 30% usage rate, near 26% assist percentage. In terms of usage bumps, Kemba sees a 2% bump in usage, a nice little bump in his fantasy point per minute average as well. Jason Tatum sees a massive bump in his fantasy production, 7.6% bump in usage, 0.21 fantasy points per minute more. We will talk about Tatum when we get to small forward. But Kemba Walker in this mid-range, I do like quite a bit if he's not limited today. Normally we would think like this matchup against the Jazz isn't great, but the Jazz have been terrible defensively. You can take a look at just like the last 10 games in terms of defensive rating. Last 10 games, the Jazz ranked 26th in defensive rating. They've just really been struggling. So I think this is a spot we can actually attack them. I do like Kemba quite a bit. I like Jason Tatum as well. Tatum's really expensive, so he's not going to be like a core play or smash play for me. But going to be a guy we will talk about when we get there. I do prefer Kemba, though, over guys like Donovan Mitchell, Chris Paul, Dinwiddie. Like, if Kemba's not limited, I do like him over all those guys. Ricky Rubio, kind of the same thing with Devin Booker. DeAndre Ayton does give a nice little bump in usage for Ricky Rubio. Should be a little bit more productive with Ayton off the floor. So he's fine to go to at 7,100. Marcus Smart, I don't really want to go to. If I'm going to target guys from the Celtics, it's going to be Kemba Walker and Jason Tatum. I just don't really like Smart. Whenever Kemba plays, like, Smart really doesn't see that much of a bump in his fantasy production. He gets a nice bump whenever Kemba's off the floor and Smart can like run point guard. That's when he's the most productive. But just in this 5K range, I do like a play here. Markelle Fultz at 5,400 I think is very appealing in this matchup against Minnesota. So we do know that Evan Fournier is doubtful for the Magic. He's most likely going to be out today. And that actually does give a nice bump in usage for Markelle Fultz. We'll take a look at his numbers with Fournier off the floor. We can also take Jonathan Isaac off the floor because we know Jonathan Isaac, not with the team. He's out right now. He's been out for a while. You look at the numbers. He's played 214 minutes with both Isaac and Fournier off the floor. Has a 26.2% usage rate, averaging just over a fantasy point per minute. Near 30% assist percentage. Very solid numbers for Markelle Fultz. I like him in this matchup against Minnesota. We know Minnesota, not a good defensive team. They play at a pretty fast pace. They're second in pace this season, so this is a big-time pace-up spot here for the Magic. The Magic, I think, are a pretty appealing team to target. We'll talk about Terrence Ross when we get to shooting guard. Guys like Aaron Gordon, Nikola Vucevic, I think, are also in play today. But I really like Fultz at 5,400 on DK. I like that he has shooting guard eligibility. I think that makes him very appealing. There are a lot of point guard plays I like today. There's a lot of good options at the top. There's a good value play that we're about to talk about. So getting to play Fultz at shooting guard makes him really appealing on DK. Tougher to get there on Yahoo because he is point guard only. And like I said, there's a lot of point guards I like paying up for. There's some value we're going to talk about. So less interested in Fultz on Yahoo. Just more of a DK play at 5,400. I think he can easily give us 6 to 7x value on that salary, especially with no Evan Fournier. That does give him a nice bump in usage. If you look at the differential, he does see a 5.4% bump in his usage rate, which is the highest on the team, 0.11 fantasy points per minute more. So I do like Markelle Fultz quite a bit in the mid-range. But then in terms of value at point guard, Ish Smith is out again, so if you want to go to Shabazz Napier, that's fine, 5,100. He still only played 26 minutes, though, last game with Ish Smith out, which is kind of surprising. I was expecting Napier to get like 30, 32 minutes. Maybe because of blowout, he lost some run in that game. I'm not sure if he played at all in the fourth quarter. I expect he gets more minutes than normal today with Ish Smith out. It's a fantastic matchup against the Hawks. It's just a great game to target. Napier is in play at 5,100. He's fine to go to. I don't think he's going to be a core play for me today. But if I was playing a lot of lineups, I would get some exposure to him. But I think the value play that really stands out at point guard today is TJ McConnell. So we do already know that Malcolm Brogdon is doubtful for the Pacers. He's not expected to play today. Victor Oladipo and TJ Warren are both also questionable. So the Pacers are going to be really banged up, or could be really banged up for this game. They're expected to be without Brogdon. They could be without both Oladipo and TJ Warren as well. We'll take a look at TJ McConnell's numbers this season with just Malcolm Brogdon off the floor. He's been a very productive player when he gets the minutes. He's been about a fantasy point per minute player, if I'm not mistaken. Pretty sure this season he has when you take Brogdon off. Whenever McConnell gets to play point guard, like, he can score, he can get assists. He just can contribute in all categories. He can get defensive stats as well. Yeah, he's averaged just shy of a fantasy point per minute. Has a 37% assist percentage. Very high assist percentage for TJ McConnell. Like, you could definitely get a points and assist double-double from him. Last game against Milwaukee, after Malcolm Brogdon got hurt and TJ McConnell was able to get a lot of run, he played 30 minutes in that game after Brogdon got hurt, had 30 Draftkings points, 14 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals, just your typical TJ McConnell game. DraftKings did not adjust his price really at all. I mean, they priced him up to 4K, but still 4K is too cheap if TJ McConnell is going to be playing 30, 32 minutes tonight, which I assume he will. Just whenever Brogdon has been out as of late, TJ McConnell has started and played upper 20s to low 30s in minutes. So I do like him a lot as a value. I think he stands out as one of the better value plays on the slate. I like him a lot on Yahoo as well. Really cheap over there, only $11 at point guard. Now, they could do something weird and maybe start Aaron Holiday. Lately, Aaron Holiday has been starting in place of Victor Oladipo. If Victor Oladipo plays, I assume either Holiday goes back to the bench or Holiday starts at point guard. Whichever one starts is the guy I prefer. They're the same salary. Both guys are 4K. If Holiday starts, you can just play Holiday over McConnell. If McConnell starts for Brogdon, then I prefer McConnell. I assume it will be McConnell, though, especially because he started the second half in place of Brogdon whenever he got hurt that game. But yeah, I think we covered everything for point guard. So let's go ahead and move on to the shooting guard position now. So at the top, you got Bradley Beal, 10,400 against the Hawks. This is obviously a great spot for Bradley Beal. I just don't know if I can get to him today over a guy like Trae Young. If I'm going to look to target someone from this game, it's going to be Trae Young for $500 less. I think Bradley Beal has a ton of upside here. If there was ever a spot for him to go out and drop 60, 70 DraftKings points like this would be it. I'm definitely going to have some Bradley Beal, Trae Young lineups. I think stacking those two guys together makes a ton of sense. If this game does wind up being high scoring and competitive like Vegas expects it to, it's very likely you're getting ceiling games out of both Young and Beal. So Beal's in play for sure. He's not my favorite stud on the slate. I prefer Trae Young. Looking at other stud options, honestly, I think I'd rather go to maybe someone like Luka if I can find the salary, can find the $900. You even have guys like in this 8K range that look very appealing. We're going to talk about Sabonis, who I like. A guy like Kemba Walker, I have a lot of interest in at 7,600 if he's not limited. So I don't think Beal's going to be a core play for me today, but definitely would have some exposure to him. He's for sure going to be in my player pool, and in lineups where I do have Trae Young, I think getting Bradley Beal in those lineups makes a ton of sense. Just straight up, though, I think I prefer Young over Beal today. But then you have a guy like Devin Booker for $2,000 less. Another guy you could pivot to off of Bradley Beal. If you don't want to pay to the top for Beal, you have Booker, who has, I wouldn't say just as much upside, but could definitely put up close to 50-plus DK points. He's $2,000 less than Beal. Jimmy Butler in a pretty good spot against the Pelicans. Normally, this is a guy that I don't really roster. He's just not a guy that you feel like you ever have to have. Whenever the team's fully healthy, when the Heat are fully healthy, rarely is Butler putting up 50, 55 DK points. If there was ever a spot, though, for him to do that, I think this would be it. For what it's worth, he did put up 50 DraftKings points in 37 minutes against the Pelicans when they played earlier this season. He's got 2 games in his last 10 over 50 DK points, but normally this is a guy that's getting you mid-30s, low 40s in fantasy points. At 7,900, I want him to put up 50-plus in order for him to be a really good tournament play at that salary. If we're just looking for guys at that similar price range, I think I'd rather get up to Devin Booker if possible. If Kemba's not limited, you got Kemba for $300 less, who I'd probably rather go to as well. Jimmy Butler, just one of those guys I'd get exposure to if I was playing a lot of lineups, but I don't think he's going to be a core play for me. Even with LaMarcus Aldridge out, DeMar DeRozan at 7,200 just hasn't been getting it done recently. He's just been really disappointing last few games, 35, 27, 36 fantasy points. I like the matchup against Brooklyn, but I just don't think I can get to DeRozan today. It's a 10-game slate. We have a lot of options. Just don't really feel like I need to get there. LeVert's fine at 7K, but another guy I just don't feel like I have to roster on a 10-game slate. So other shooting guard plays, just looking at this Atlanta-Washington game, you got Kevin Huerter, 5,600. Normally this is not a guy that I roster whenever the team's fully healthy, but games like this are games you could get ceiling games from Kevin Huerter. We saw him put up a big game against Portland, 35 minutes, 45 fantasy points. We know he's going to play big minutes if it's a close game. This game just has so much potential for DFS purposes with the pace, the projected points, close spread. I'd probably rather roster roster Kevin Huerter over guys like Seth Curry, Terrence Ross even. I do like Ross since Fournier's out. Maybe they start Terrence Ross. Maybe they bring him off the bench. We don't really know. This guy's most likely going to play 32 to 34 minutes, though, off the bench. If he starts, maybe he picks up a few more minutes. It is a really good matchup against Minnesota. He did just drop 51 DK points on them just a week ago. So there's plenty of upside for Terrence Ross. I think Kevin Huerter, though, I'd probably rather go to, especially if he's going to come in at lower ownership. You also have Markelle Fultz, who could play at 5,400. Now, if Luka's out, obviously with Luka questionable, that's a big injury to watch. If he were to sit, that would make a guy like Seth Curry much more appealing, but I still would probably rather go to guys like Ross, Huerter, Fultz over him. Napier, we talked about, you could play him at 5,100. In terms of value plays, though, at shooting guard, if we're looking for cheap options here, really nothing stands out besides maybe some of these Dallas guys. If Luka's out, if Luka were to sit, a guy like DeLon Wright would become a really good value, but that's just news we're going to have to wait and see on. Like I said earlier, I assume Luka plays today, but we'll keep an eye on that heading into Friday. Hopefully we get an update like in the afternoon after shoot-around. That is, I think that's one of the night games. Yeah, that Memphis-Dallas game's at 8:30, so if we don't have news on Luka before lock, that's going to be really tough to work with because I'm going to want some of that Dallas value if he does get ruled out. But let's move on to small forward now. We'll talk about this position. So Jason Tatum, 10K, I think we definitely need to hit on. His price tag is coming up. This is the first time I think we've had Tatum in 5 figures this season. I don't think he's reached the 10K threshold yet, but he is 10K today. I mean, it's hard to argue against the salary. Like, the dude is just playing so well right now, getting huge minutes. Even in that game against Cleveland that didn't go to overtime, it was close down to the wire. Jason Tatum played 40 minutes in regulation. He obviously benefited with pretty much the entire team being out that game. They had no Gordon Hayward, no Jaylen Brown, no Kemba Walker, which allowed a guy like Jason Tatum to just do whatever he wanted. Took 24 shots, took 10 threes, had 32 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, 1 block, and 2 steals. 58 Draftkings points from Tatum there. I mean, we pulled up the numbers earlier without both Gordon Hayward and Jaylen Brown off the floor. Like, Jason Tatum has a very high usage rate. His fantasy point per minute average is very high as well. I think I'd rather go to a guy like Kemba for like 2,500 less if Kemba's not limited. Kemba's probably my favorite target from the Celtics, but you still can't argue against Tatum today. I mean, you look at the numbers: 1.42 fantasy points per minute, 36% usage rate, 18% assist percentage, 11% total rebound percentage. Like, if you project him to play 36, 38 minutes, he still probably projects for like. Just doing the math in my head, that's like low 50s, like 52, 53 DK points, which still feels like a pretty good projection even at 10K. There's obviously more upside for him than 52. I mean, he's shown he has 60, 65 point upside. Like, the offense is going to run through Jason Tatum. It's going to run through Kemba Walker for this game. Tatum put up 53 DK points against the Jazz earlier this season, 38 minutes played. Like, don't be surprised you see Tatum put up 50, 55, maybe even a 60 burger. At 10K, I don't think I can play him over guys like Trae Young. I'd probably rather roster Bradley Beal. It's close between those two guys. Beal has the much more appealing game, like just a faster-paced game, 2 terrible defensive teams. So I give the edge to Beal there, but I still have a lot of interest in Jason Tatum. I don't think he's out of play at all. I still think if you played Jason Tatum in your like single entry lineup, I would not have a problem with that at all. I think he's definitely a guy you can look to. I mean, the numbers have been there. The usage is there right now. Especially with no Kemba Walker, or with no Jaylen Brown, no Gordon Hayward, the usage is going to be there for Tatum. But other small forwards, looking for guys I haven't talked about yet. Not much stands out in the mid-range. TJ Warren's questionable. If he were to sit, I don't think that really gives us much value. That would just give boost to guys like TJ McConnell, maybe Victor Oladipo if he plays were to get a slight boost. Like, maybe Jakar Sampson or Doug McDermott would start, but I don't really know if I'd even want to target those guys for value. So I guess maybe if Warren plays, you could go to him at 6K. Without Malcolm Brogdon, he does get a small bump in usage, but rarely is TJ Warren a guy I feel like I have to roster, especially on a 10-game slate. Just not a guy I feel like I have to play. You do have some appealing options in this 5K range. Terrence Ross, Kevin Huerter, we talked about. Going back to that Atlanta-Washington game, you got DeAndre Hunter for 4,900 you could target. Hunter's locked into big minutes right now, especially if Cam Reddish were to be out again. Like, we're going to get 32, 34 minutes from DeAndre Hunter. If this is a close game, it's a fantastic matchup. He could easily give you 30, 35 DK points. I do like him as a small forward value at 4,900. With no DeAndre Ayton, I think that does solidify minutes for Dario Saric. Saric has already been getting relatively good run. I mean, he only played 23 minutes against the Raptors. He did have 4 fouls in that game, though, so maybe that was one of the reasons. But most nights, we're getting probably 30 to 32 minutes from Sarge, especially while Kelly Oubre remains out. With no DeAndre Ayton, that just frees up even more minutes in the front court. So I think Sarge is in play as a value. I'd probably rather go to DeAndre Hunter, but you can definitely go there at 4,900. He's in play. But yeah, I think that's it for small forward. I think we covered everything here. So let's go ahead and move on to power forward now. Looking at this position, you do have Giannis at the top against the Lakers, 11,200. Anytime Giannis is on the slate, I have interest in him. Anytime he's going to be in a close game, I have interest in him, and that's the case today against the Lakers. This is a game you expect to be close. I don't know if we have a line yet. I can see if Yahoo has a line. I mean, right now they have it as a pick 'em, but they have a lot of games as pick 'em, so I don't really know if that's the case. But I wouldn't be surprised if you see like a 1-2 point spread here. Like this should be a close game. Giannis should be locked into his full allotment of minutes. He should probably play 32 to 34 minutes, assuming this game does stay close. Although it is a tough matchup against the Lakers, like Giannis is just matchup proof. Nobody's going to stop him one-on-one. No team is really going to be able to slow him down. I know the Heat gave him a lot of troubles last game or a couple games ago, but still, most nights you're getting 50, 55 DK points from Giannis. In close games where he's playing his full minutes, he has 65, 70-point upside. He put up 64 DK points on the Lakers when they played earlier this season in 32 minutes. I think I'd rather roster Trae Young for cheaper, but still, Giannis is up there. Between Giannis and Luka, it's very close between those two guys. I think I'd give the slight edge to Giannis, but both guys are definitely in play as stud options. Like, really, I don't think there's any studs today where I say, like, nope, I don't want to roster him. Like, maybe Whiteside against the Suns, he should actually do really well there. Porzingis against the Grizzlies, maybe kind of, like, if I was playing 150 lineups, if there's any guys that I would just get no exposure to, like 9K and above, I think if I was playing 150 lineups, I'd probably have exposure to all these guys 9K and above. Luka, Giannis, LeBron. Even if that just means 1 out of 150 lineups, I want some exposure. So I don't really have any problems with Giannis. I just don't think he's my favorite stud today. Same with a guy like AD. AD's prices come down a good amount. He's down to 9,800 on DK. But going just back to it, like I've said, I think I do prefer a guy like Trae Young for 100 more. I still expect AD, though, to have a lot of success in this matchup. He did really well against the Bucks earlier this season, had 65 Draftkings points in 43 minutes. He's probably going to see a lot of Giannis, but, I mean, it's not like Giannis is going to slow down AD. Like, AD's another matchup-proof player. Doesn't really matter who you put on or who you put up against him one-on-one. He's going to find his way to produce. He's going to get to the basket, get to the rim. He's going to score. He's going to rebound. So AD's for sure in play. Between AD and Tatum, I'd probably give the slight edge to Davis, but it's close between those two guys. Definitely on Yahoo, I prefer Tatum. Tatum's $45, AD is $51, so there's a pretty big salary difference there. Whereas DraftKings, $200 difference, I'd probably side with AD. But actually, one of my favorite power forwards today is Domantas Sabonis. I like Sabonis a ton in this matchup against the Bulls. I like him on both sides. He's very affordable on Yahoo. He's down to $36, cheaper than John Collins, cheaper than Zion, only $2 more than Julius Randle. Definitely give me some Domantas Sabonis in this spot. I think this is a smash spot for him against the Bulls. We know how bad this Bulls front court is, just in terms of rebounding, in terms of just defending power forwards, defending centers. You look at the rebound percentage, the Bulls do rank 28th in rebound percentage this season. If you look at any sort of DVP stats, the Bulls have been one of the worst defensive teams versus bigs, versus power forwards and centers. This is an absolute smash spot for Sabonis. He's going to play 34 to 36 minutes if this is a close game. No Malcolm Brogdon actually gives a slight boost to Sabonis. We'll take a look at his numbers this season with Brogdon off the floor. Let's just assume Brogdon, Warren, and those guys were to be out. So if we take Warren, take Brogdon, we can take Jeremy Lamb off as well. Oladipo, let's just assume he's out. Let's assume all these guys remain out for the Pacers. We'll take a look at the numbers for Domantas Sabonis, see if we get any sort of a decent sample size. He's played 446 minutes with all of Lamb, Oladipo, Warren, and Brogdon off the floor. 1.45 fantasy points per minute, 27% usage rate, 28% assist percentage, 22% total rebound percentage. Those are absolutely elite numbers for Sabonis. Even if you say, let's say Warren plays, let's say Oladipo plays, we'll take a look at his numbers with just Lamb and Brogdon off. They're still probably going to look really good if I had to guess. 1.36 fantasy points per minute, 25% usage rate, near 25% assist percentage, 22% total rebound percentage. Just getting Brogdon and Lamb off is a boost for Sabonis. Sees a 2% bump in usage, 0.14 fantasy points per minute more. So nice bump in his fantasy production overall. It's a fantastic matchup. It's a spot where Sabonis should absolutely smash. I love him here. I think the price tag is very affordable, or very reasonable, I should say. I think at this price, like, not many people are going to roster Sabonis. I don't expect him to be like that chalky today, which makes him even more appealing. I don't think there's going to be like any massive chalk. Well, with these value plays, like TJ McConnell will be pretty popular. We're going to talk about Aaron Baines. I think Aaron Baines is going to be really popular, but I think these studs, you're going to see pretty like even ownership across all these stud guys. Trae Young might get 15 to 20%. Giannis might get 10 to 15%. Like, I don't think you're going to have a stud on the slate that's like 50% owned. So really just kind of pick your guy, guys you like most. And for me, right now, it's definitely Trae Young, Sabonis. Like, those are some of my favorite pay-up options today. But taking a look at other power forwards, so Aaron Gordon is someone I like a lot on Yahoo. He's small forward over there, which I think is really appealing. The small forward position is usually always a tough position. Today is actually surprisingly pretty deep. You have good pay-up options here. You have Tatum. You have Aaron Gordon, who we're going to talk about, obviously. You got LeVert. If you want to go to DeRozan or Ingram, I'm fine with them. But, like, Tatum looks really good. Gordon, I really like at 33. For value, you actually have some cheap plays here. You have, like, DeAndre Hunter for 15 you could look to. But mainly, I want to try and pay up at this position if I can. And Aaron Gordon at only $33 really stands out at his Yahoo salary. I love this matchup for him against Minnesota. This is a spot he just smashed in not too long ago, just a week ago. Faced them, I think it was last Friday. Had 52 fantasy points in 41 minutes. Had his first triple-double of the season against Minnesota. 17 points, 11 rebounds, 12 assists, 2 blocks. Aaron Gordon has shown massive upside as of late. He's had two somewhat tough matchups. I wouldn't say the Spurs was a tough matchup, but definitely had a tough spot against Miami. Kind of disappointed, only 36 fantasy points in 35 minutes. But now that we're getting like 38, 40 minutes a night from Aaron Gordon, no Evan Fournier just gives him a slight boost even more. It's a fantastic matchup. Minnesota, we've said it earlier in the video, but they're playing at the second fastest pace in the league. In terms of defensive rating, they've been pretty bad on the defensive end. They're 20th in defensive rating. We can take a look at his numbers this season with Fournier off the floor. Let's go to the Magic. We'll take a look at his numbers just like from the last 2 weeks that he's been playing really well. If you look at Gordon's season-long numbers, like they're not great because obviously he hasn't been the same player that he has been like lately. I mean, you look at his game log as of late and then like beginning of the season. I mean, beginning of the season you were getting like 28 to 30 fantasy points from Gordon most nights. Well, just been a completely different player as of late. 43, 54, like he's got 40 plus fantasy points. I don't even know how many games this is. In 6 of his last 8 games, he's got 40 plus fantasy points. Just been playing on another level recently. Just the last 2 weeks, he's averaged 1.14 fantasy points per minute, 23% assist percentage, 13% total rebound percentage. Really has solid numbers across the board. If we were to take Fournier off the floor, I know we're probably going to get a pretty small sample size here, but with Fournier off and not expect to play today, I would assume that gives Aaron Gordon a little bit of a bump. 1.15 fantasy points per minute, so really not much of a bump, but a little bit of a spike in usage. His usage goes up just about over 1%. 29% assist percentage, though, so his assist percentage does spike a little bit. 10% total rebound percentage. I mean, if you look at his season-long numbers, like I said, they're not great. He only averages about a fantasy point per minute on the season. But lately, he's just been a different player. He's not playing like he was at the beginning of the season. Just more aggressive, contributing in all categories. The $8,600 price tag is going to scare people away, but the upside is there for Aaron Gordon, especially in a matchup as good as this one. We saw what he can do against this Minnesota team. When he gets a good matchup, you have massive upside from AG, and this is obviously a great spot today. So really like him. Prefer him on Yahoo where he's small forward, where he's $33. Like you compare his price to other small forwards, he's cheaper than Brandon Ingram, cheaper than DeRozan. He's $12 less than Tatum. He's only $1 more than Karis LeVert. Like I think I would definitely prefer Aaron Gordon as one of my favorite small forwards on Yahoo. It'd be close between him and Tatum. If you can find a way to get Tatum in, sure, you could go that route. But I think given the savings, I prefer AG at 33. But just taking a look at other power forwards, John Collins, just such a good game, such a good matchup. He's in play for sure against the Wizards. This is a spot where he should have a lot of success. I know he disappointed last game against Memphis, but expect a bounce-back game from John Collins. This is a fantastic matchup. I do like him quite a bit. Probably would prefer Sabonis and Gordon over him, just in the similar price range, but John Collins definitely in play. Zion's price has come down a little bit, which I think makes him somewhat appealing. Not the best spot against Miami, but he's down to 7,600, so I think he's in play today if you're playing a lot of lineups. Davis Bertans in a really good matchup against the Hawks. I could see like getting a ceiling game out of Bertans here. This feels like a spot where maybe he could knock down like 6-7 threes. He's for sure going to have the opportunity to get up as many shots as he wants in a fast-paced game like this, where you just expect a ton of points to be scored. So Bertans is a fine power forward in that mid-range. At the same price, you have Carmelo against the Suns, who's fine to go to as well. Rui against the Hawks, I like that matchup a lot. Rui should get plenty of time at center, and the Hawks have been getting killed by centers this season. I know Thomas Bryant was out last game, which helped Rui a little bit. 29 minutes, just 24 fantasy points, kind of surprising. I was expecting him to be a little bit more productive there. I think Thomas Bryant is expected to play, though, like he was just out for rest. He should be back today. But still, really against the Hawks, really good matchup. Another guy you could target. Trey Lyles as well. Without Aldridge, without Pirtle, he's going to get a ton of minutes, going to get plenty of run at center, and we know how bad Brooklyn is at defending centers. So at 5,100, you could definitely consider Trey Lyles. But I think that's probably it for power forward. I think we covered everybody that I wanted to talk about. You have a lot of guys here who, like we've already talked about, like DeAndre Hunter, Dario Saric. We saw Mitchell Robinson out last game, which helped Bobby Portis a ton. Portis was able to play 30 minutes. He was pretty productive, had 29 DK points. If Mitchell Robinson is out again, Bobby Portis at 4,500 is viable if you want to go there. Did want to mention Semi Ojeleye, Grant Williams. So one of these two guys, I assume, starts with Gordon Hayward out. They're most likely going to start Kemba, Marcus Smart, Jason Tatum, and Daniel Tice. We know those four of those five guys are going to be in the starting lineup. It's just figuring out who that fifth starter is. If I had to guess, it's either going to be Ojeleye or Williams. Ojeleye had a massive game last game against Cleveland, 30 minutes, 37 DK points. It was his best game of the season. He really wasn't getting any run until that game. I don't know if he gets run today. I don't know if they reward him with a start because of how well he played last game. Even if he does start, I just don't really want to go to any of these secondary Boston guys. If I'm going to target players from Boston today, it's going to be Tatum and Kemba. I'm just going to keep it simple. Those two guys are just going to hog all the usage, going to take all the shots. Ojeleye was able to benefit last game because half the team was out. Really, it was just Tatum and Smart out there. Now you have Tatum, you have Smart, you have Kemba. Those guys are going to demand the ball most when they're on the floor, or when they're on the floor. So probably going to keep me off of Ojeleye and Williams, even though they're cheap. Doubt I go there. So let's go ahead and talk about center. We'll hit on this position just before we end the video. So at the top here, looking for expensive guys we haven't touched on. You got Porzingis, Whiteside, Vucevic, some of the top pay-up options here. I do have interest in all three guys. I like the matchup for all three guys. Porzingis against the Grizzlies, Whiteside against the Suns, Vooch against the Timberwolves. I know Vooch, I think he had a big game against the Timberwolves. Yeah, they played a week ago. He had 50 DraftKings points in 34 minutes. Without Karl-Anthony Towns, that does help Vucevic. Vooch is going to see a lot of Naz Reid, and Naz Reid really not a good defender at all. Vooch is getting monster minutes right now as well. Played 40 minutes against Miami last game. I think Vooch probably gets 34, 36 minutes today if it's a close game, so he's very appealing. Whiteside against the Suns without DeAndre Ayton I think is also appealing. Now, Aaron Baines is going to be out there defending Whiteside if I had to guess, and Aaron Baines is actually a better defender than DeAndre Ayton. So maybe it's honestly a downgrade for him, but still, we know the kind of upside Whiteside has. Even with Damian Lillard coming back, that didn't affect Whiteside at all last game. He still put up 55 DraftKings points in 35 minutes against the Wizards. Choosing between Whiteside, Porzingis, and Vooch, I think it's close. I think all three guys project very similarly today. If somehow Luka were to sit, then I would definitely give the edge to Porzingis. Assuming Luka plays, though, I think my favorite pay-up guy here, it's probably Vucevic against the Timberwolves. I just really like that matchup. I like the pace-up spot. Timberwolves have just been so bad defensively. Plus, he's the cheaper of the three, so you're getting some savings there. Looking at Yahoo's pricing, you got Whiteside at 44, Porzingis at 40, and then you have Vooch at 38. I think I'd lean with Vooch as well, given that he's the cheapest of the three. But I have no problems with either of those three guys. I think it's tough to pay up at center, though, because the top value play on the slate, in my opinion, is coming from the center position. So I feel like this position I'm probably going to be paying down at a lot today. But other centers, Bam against the Pelicans, really good matchup. If you want to go there, I'm fine with that. Just in the mid-range, though, Naz Reid has been really good as of late, but this is a tough spot against the Magic. I have concerns with him getting in foul trouble here, so doubt I go to Naz Reid, even though he's played much better as of late. In terms of value, though, at center, it's a really good matchup for Miles Turner. It's a spot where you could definitely catch an upside game from him against the Bulls. I know he smashed the Bulls earlier this season whenever I think Sabonis missed last time they played the Bulls, and Turner had 50 DraftKings points. Don't expect him to put up 50 DK points today, but he does see a nice bump in usage when you take Brogdon off the floor. Surprisingly, it has helped Turner a lot. So at 5,200, he's fine to go to. Trey Lyles, we talked about, you could play as well. Jared Allen's down to 4,800, so that makes him a viable, cheap option if you want to go there. We talked about Portis, you could play. Lauri Markkanen's really cheap, but I think he's still going to be on a minutes limit. He played 21 minutes in his first game back from injury. I assume he probably gets about mid-20s in minutes again. Now, if we get word that he's not limited, I think if we can get like 30, 32 minutes from Lauri Markkanen at 4,500, that would make him a really good option, but I doubt that happens. So I think we talked about all that. Let's move down to this value play that we should probably talk about. So Aaron Baines, he's a stone minimum on both sites. He's 3K on DraftKings. He is minimum salary $10 on Yahoo. With DeAndre Ayton not expect to play for the Suns, he's doubtful. I assume Aaron Baines gets the start, and that makes him the best value play on the slate, in my opinion. Whenever Baines has gotten minutes this season, he's been an incredibly productive player. Just the reason he doesn't play minutes is because they have DeAndre Ayton. They've been running Ayton out there for 36, 38 minutes a night. Well, now you have to give those 36, 38 minutes to somebody, and I assume Aaron Baines soaks up a large majority of those minutes. Plus, I don't think this is a spot where you can play like Dario Saric at the 5. I just don't know if that's going to work against Hassan Whiteside. You're going to need a big like Aaron Baines out there to defend Whiteside. I think Baines probably gets mid-20s, if not upper 20s, possibly even 30, 32 minutes. And at the absolute minimum salary, like DraftKings didn't adjust his price. He's going to be incredibly chalky today, but I think this is chalk that you just eat and kind of move on. Like, it's really hard to get away from Aaron Baines. He just projects so well. If I was playing 150 lineups, like I would probably just lock in Aaron Baines and then kind of differentiate elsewhere in my lineups. You start your lineups. I know it's going to be a chalky build, but if you start your lineups with McConnell and Baines today, like that you've got that. I think that leaves you like 7K remaining per player or something like that. You got a lot of salary to work with, and I feel like even though that's going to be a chalky way to go, that's probably the route that I'm going to be taking today. And hell, you never know, we could get even more value as the day goes on if some injuries break. But right now, love Aaron Baines here. Top value play on the slate. I don't think it's even close. Like when this guy was healthy at the beginning of the season, I know I'm kind of rambling, but when he was playing 30 minutes a night, like he was a like close to $20 player on Yahoo. He was like, I know he was like 5K, 6K on DraftKings. Like when he plays 30 minutes, he gives you massive games. 31 minutes, 38 fantasy points. 28 minutes, 29 fantasy points. I think he's played Portland a couple times this season. Let me check the game log. Yeah, played December 16th, only 18 minutes. I'm pretty sure Ayton was healthy then. Still had 24 fantasy points. See, 27 minutes, 28 fantasy points. I think Ayton might have been out that game. I'm not sure. Or that was maybe back when they were starting them alongside each other. But yeah, as you can see, Baines should be in line, or he should be in line to play mid-20s, if not upper 20s in minutes. And look, he's going to be chalky, but I'm fine eating the chalk and then kind of differentiating elsewhere. Now, if somehow Aaron Baines does not start, if they do something weird and like start Check Diallo, then you could definitely play Check Diallo as a value. He's 3,200. Just kind of leave yourself some salary so that way you could pivot up to Diallo if Baines were to not start. But I am assuming that Baines does get the start at center, which makes him the top value for me. So that's what I'm liking at center today, guys. That's what I'm liking for this slate. 10 gamer tonight, really big slate. I think we covered it all though. Talked about all my favorite plays, guys that I like. I will go more in depth on this slate in my article that I'll be posting on Patreon in the afternoon. So if you want to check out my article, get access to my updated core plays in case anything changes. If we get any updates throughout the day, I do provide updates over on Patreon. I give updated core plays. I also have a Discord chat you can join. We're chatting through the slate 24/7. I'm in Discord up until lock, answering questions, helping you guys build out your lineups. Check out the Patreon content. See all that I have to offer over there. Also, you can follow me on Twitter, which is linked down below in the description as well, at DFS by Noah. But best of luck tonight, guys. Really appreciate you watching the video. If you stuck through the entire thing, I thank you so much for that. I know these videos can be long, but I do try and give you guys just as much information, as much analysis as I can. So best of luck. Good luck tonight. Already said that. Drop a like, subscribe. We'll see you in the next video, guys. Peace.